At 5:29 a.m. in the New Mexico desert, a sphere of plutonium detonated with the force of 22,000 tons of TNT. The fireball generated a heat more intense than the surface of the sun, vaporizing the test tower and turning the desert sand into green, radioactive glass. J. Robert Oppenheimer didn't respond to the sight with physics equations. Instead, he reached for ancient poetry to process the moment, famously quoting the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." This was the moment we moved past fighting wars nation by nation. We had achieved the mechanical capacity to annihilate ourselves entirely in a single afternoon. 3 weeks later, Nagasaki was erased, ending the war and locking the world into the nuclear age. Albert Einstein later noted that the bomb changed everything except our way of thinking. We had achieved godlike mastery over the physical world, without gaining a corresponding level of moral maturity. This model of DNA represents science as our civilization's instrument panel, our most reliable way to measure, model, and test what is physically true. But an instrument panel only tracks specific data. The scientific method excels at answering what and how, but to achieve that precision, it systematically excludes why and for what. By declaring ultimate ends as purely subjective, we created a culture where our most powerful tools operate without a shared map of what they are actually for. This approach has clear value. Isolating variables is what allows us to discover physical laws and separate medicine from magic. To build a functioning transistor or a reliable vaccine, you must strip away messy human emotion. The subjectivity has to be removed for the mechanism to work. This is reductionism, the assumption that we can understand a complex reality by breaking it down into its smallest physical parts. While reductionism is effective for manipulating isolated variables, it fails as a tool for navigating complex, living systems, where the relationships between the parts matter as much as the parts themselves. Think now of a standard medical encounter. To diagnose a patient's suffering, a doctor asks them to rate their pain on a scale from 1 to 10. The patient hesitates because the number feels like a lie. A single integer cannot contain their actual experience, the grief, the isolation, and the slow erosion of hope. The medical form has a quantifiable box, but the human suffering does not fit inside it. When we apply this narrow vision to ecosystems, we get results like industrial agriculture. We optimize the land for a single measurable metric, crop yield. We maximize that yield in the short term, but we systematically destabilize the soil microbiome and the water systems, eroding the foundations that the productivity relies on. This same reductionist logic drove the opioid epidemic. It treated complex human pain as a single treatable data point, a number on a scale. Because the human context of that pain was excluded from the objective medical record, it left a vacuum. That vacuum was filled by corporate marketing. Regulatory systems failed, and a supposedly objective scientific apparatus was weaponized against the public. When we divorce facts from values, the tools we build to solve problems eventually become the primary drivers of our most complex crises. If a house is on fire, the scientific method can definitively measure the temperature and the rate of combustion, but science cannot tell us what inside the house is worth saving, or what kind of world we should rebuild in the ashes. Because we exiled the moral ought from our knowledge systems, we allowed market forces and algorithms to become our default moral compasses. A precision instrument panel is useless if the compass guiding the ship is broken. The solution isn't to abandon scientific rigor or evidence. It is to expand our definition of rigor to include contexts, relationships, and lived human experience. We need to see the living wholes and the feedback loops that reductionism ignores. To survive the power we've created, we must find a way to reunite our technical mastery with a shared sense of human meaning.